Hey guys, you probably won't survive this one without muttering, "No way," at least twice, because it starts with a kid selling daisies on a cold street corner and somehow ends with math professors scratching their heads like they just got outplayed by a chess-playing cat. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to see where you're listening from. The morning sun spills across Woodvale's cobblestones, the air smelling faintly of roasted chestnuts from a vendor 2 streets over. Right in the middle of this postcard scene, Crown University has rolled out a blackboard like they're auditioning for Nobel Prize, the outdoor edition. On it is scrawled something called the Goldbach conjecture. Historians still argue whether it's the most maddeningly simple math problem ever posed or just a cosmic prank. Emily Carter, all of 11, stands by a rusted lamppost with a bundle of daisies, cheeks pink from the wind, shoes doing a terrible job against the chill. She has zero formal math training unless you count adding up coins from flower sales, but her eyes lock on those chalk marks like she's found the last cookie in the jar. Security says, "Guests only," and she nods without fuss, moving back to her corner. But from there, she studies the spaces between the numbers, seeing petals. The symmetry feels alive, almost humming. She tears a scrap of florist paper, draws circles, arcs, dots bearing numbers like dance partners at a very exclusive ball. Evenings find her and her grandmother in their one-room flat, the old woman thinking she's drawing flowers, Emily insisting they're numbers that dance. The next morning, she's back. A grad student named Owen Reyes notices her, jokes about solving the conjecture. She softly replies with 38 equals 31 and 7 or 40 equals 17 and 23 if you count around in a circle. He blinks because counting in a circle isn't in any of his textbooks. She uses sidewalk chalk to sketch her methoda, flower-like ring of even numbers with prime pairs connecting like threads and lace. From a few feet away, a professor frowns, mutters something about kids and chalk, but Owen snaps a photo. That night, he runs her pairings through software. The results aren't a solution, but there's rhythm repeating structures like petals folding onto themselves. It's nothing he's seen in literature. He sends it to his advisor, who promptly calls it child's doodling. Owen disagrees. He returns to the square under moonlight, invites Emily into the lecture hall, and watches her cover the board with spirals until a professor storms in and erases it all in 2 angry sweeps. What no one notices is that the security cameras have captured every line she drew. Owen walks out of that lecture hall with his jaw tight and a USB-sized plan forming in his head. The next morning, he's in the IT office politely but not really demanding the security footage from midnight to 3 a.m. in room B32. After a 2-hour standoff involving the student dean, a technician slides the drive across the desk like it's contraband. Back in his dorm, he trims the clips, boosts the resolution, grabs stills of each stage of Emily's spirals, and uploads them to an academic forum under the title Visual Modeling of Prime Pair Symmetry, Unknown Contributor, age 11. By lunch, mathematicians from MIT to Tokyo are in the comments, split into 2 noisy camps. Some think it's a hoax, others are convinced it's an intuitive leap worth pursuing. One user from the International Institute of Mathematics confirms privately that they've received similar diagrams from Owen and are running tests. And then comes the question echoing through the threads. Who is the girl? Emily isn't there to answer. Her curb is empty, the apartment above the bakery stripped bare. A pretzel vendor hands Owen an envelope for the one with sad eyes. Inside, one more spiral and a note. "Thank you for listening. I'll come back when the flowers bloom again." The story goes viral anyway. TV anchors show the footage of her small hands looping arcs between primes. Teachers print the spirals for classrooms. A college in Iowa hosts Chalk Day to draw number patterns on sidewalks. The professor who erased her work Clin-Wood faces calls to resign, and under the weight of public opinion, he quietly steps down. Historians still argue whether this was the first time a university publicly admitted dismissing genius for lack of credentials. Months later, as petals actually start blooming in the square, Emily returns. She doesn't bring daisies, she brings chalk, and kids gather to copy her spirals. Owen stands at the edge, watching as the square shifts from marketplace to open-air math garden. She tells him she waited to see if the numbers would still make sense without an audience. They do, and now she's teaching no equations, just shapes, colors, and a philosophy she sums up in one sentence. Numbers were beautiful before they were scary. Word of her class spreads. Children who struggle with math show up, and even a stiff district official ends up sitting on the floor drawing. Emily never preaches theory. Instead, she quietly hands out sheets with spirals and a note. Prime numbers like to talk to each other. Sometimes we just have to draw the conversation. Spring tilts towards summer, and what began as a cluster of kids in the square grows into a movement. The community center gives Emily a permanent space room, 12-bit walls and floors dusted with chalk outlines. Its only rule painted at the door. No tests, no desks, no right answers, just shapes. Tourists wander in expecting to watch the prodigy, but leave with dust on their palms and the memory of drawing their first spiral. Owen asks if she wants to enroll formally at Crown. She smiles and says, maybe someday, but for now I want to keep learning the way I found it like wine through a window. Even Linwood returns, carrying slate shard from the blackboard he once wiped clean, each etched with prime pairs in color. She lets him place them on a shelf without ceremony. Historians still argue whether that was the moment his reputation truly shifted or if it was when he started teaching barefoot in the campus gardens. The spirals travel farther than Emily does. A public television crew films the children's hands in close-up, refusing to narrate over them. A New York Times magazine cover redraws one of her loops under the headline, "The Girl Who Made Numbers Bloom." Inside is a letter she's written to anyone who's ever felt left out in math class. I used to think smart meant fast, but maybe it just means being quiet long enough to see what others missed. Then comes an envelope from France. The International Institute of Mathematics invites her not to solve anything, but to show what she sees. In Paris, she stands before rows of seasoned mathematicians, draws a triple-petaled spiral, and when asked if it's her solution to the Goldbach conjecture, shakes her head. It's just how it breathes to me. Back home, Carter circled the open-air chalk ring in the Squarius, officially declared a protected space. One golden evening, Emily leads her students there for what she calls the last spiral for now. They draw loops until the boards are full, the art's imperfect but alive. Owen arrives late with a leather-bound book, every spiral she's ever made, plus the ones the children have created, each labeled not with numbers, but with names. That night, she sits alone in the circle, the book in her lap, boards still glowing with chalk dust. She closes her eyes and hears the numbers not as problems, but as quiet invitations. She draws one final line, a loop returning gently to itself, and leaves it for the wind. The square settles under a violet dusk, the hum of the day fading into the softer rhythm of footsteps heading home. Chalk dust drifts in the cooling air, catching the last light like lazy fireflies, and the scent of early summer flowers hangs faintly between the benches. Emily walks slowly along the edge of Carter's Circle, fingertips brushing the smooth cedar rail, her shoes scuffing the same cobblestones where she once stood alone behind a lamppost. Children's laughter still lingers, but it's distant now, tucked into the side streets, and the boards stand quiet, patterns from earlier smudged just enough to hint at the hands that made them. In the stillness, every arc and line feels less like a record of work done and more like a garden left to grow on its own, the petals of thought curling inward for the night. She pauses at the center stone, places the daisy she's carried all evening down in its middle, and steps back. There's no need to speak. The spiral she drew earlier is already doing the talking, its curve catching the eye and pulling it gently inward, as if inviting whoever sees it to slow down just a little. The town around her exhales. Windows glow warm, shop doors lock, and somewhere a cello begins to play a tune with no urgency to end. Emily turns toward home, the leather-bound book held against her side, and the air is cool enough to make her breathe deeper. Behind her, the chalk glows faintly in the low light, not demanding attention, simply existing like the numbers she listens to, always there, waiting for someone patient enough to notice. In the quiet, The circle listens back, and the night folds over Woodvale like a page turning softly.